You pray for a loved one, and they still die. You tithe faithfully, and yet the financial struggle never seems to end. A doctor delivers a diagnosis you never saw coming. And for those who have lived long enough, you have buried friends, fought health battles of your own, and watched the world grow darker with every passing year. You see what is happening out there. And somewhere in the middle of a lifetime of that, even the most faithful believer quietly asks God the question, if God is real, if He is good, if He is all-powerful, why does He allow any of this? This is not a simple question, and anyone who gives you a simple answer is not being honest with you. Today we are going to look at this from both sides. The raw, honest, emotional reality of people who are suffering right now, and the theological arguments that have stood for centuries. This question has a name in philosophy and theology. It is called the problem of evil, and it is considered by many to be the single strongest argument against the existence of God. The argument goes like this: if God is all-powerful, He can prevent evil. If God is all good, He would want to prevent evil. But evil still exists. Therefore, either God is not all-powerful, not all good, or He does not exist at all. That is a serious argument. It deserves a serious response. But before we get into the theology, we need to acknowledge something. For many people watching this right now, this is not an intellectual debate. It is personal. You have lost someone. You have suffered something. You have prayed and felt nothing. This video is for both of you, the thinker and the brokenhearted. You see, theology is important, but theology alone does not hold a person at 3 a.m. when they cannot stop crying. There are people who have prayed for years for a situation to change, and it has not changed. People who have served God faithfully and still lost everything. People who looked at the suffering in their life and concluded that either God does not exist or He simply does not care. That feeling is real, and the Bible does not dismiss it. The Psalms are full of it. Psalm 22 opens with the words, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" Words that Jesus Himself cried from the cross. Lamentations is an entire book of grief and confusion directed at God. Job spent most of his book demanding an explanation from God for his suffering. God is not frightened by your anger. He is not offended by your questions. The most honest prayers in the Bible were also the most painful ones. What the Bible does promise is not the removal of all suffering in this life. It promises presence. Isaiah 43:2 says, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you." Not around the waters, through them. Here is something that often gets lost in this conversation. Christianity does not offer a God who watches suffering from a distance and offers explanations. It offers a God who stepped into His own creation and suffered alongside us. Jesus was rejected, betrayed, falsely accused, tortured, and He died one of the most painful deaths known to human history. The shortest verse in the Bible, John 11:35, simply says, Jesus wept. At the tomb of Lazarus, before He even raised him, He wept. God is not indifferent to your pain. He has felt it. And the resurrection means that suffering, as real and as devastating as it is, does not have the final word. That is the emotional anchor of the Christian faith. Not that life will be painless, but that pain is not permanent, and death is not the end. Now let's talk about the theological side. The most common theological answer to the problem of evil is free will. The argument is this: God did not create robots. He created beings with a genuine ability to choose. Love that is forced is not love. Obedience that is programmed is not obedience. For human beings to be truly free, truly moral, they must have the ability to choose good or evil. And the moment genuine free will exists, evil becomes possible. C.S. Lewis put it this way: God could have created a world without free will and without evil. But He would have also created a world without love, without courage, without genuine goodness. A world of safe, hollow, meaningless existence. The Bible supports this in Genesis. God gave Adam and Eve one instruction and the genuine freedom to break it. He did not override their choice when they made the wrong one, because the freedom was real. Now, does free will explain every form of evil? A tsunami? A child born with a terminal illness? Natural disasters that kill thousands? This is where free will alone falls short, and where we need to go deeper. Scripture teaches that the world we live in is not the world God originally designed. Genesis 3 describes a moment, the fall, where sin entered the world through human choice. And Romans 8:20-22 gives us a remarkable insight into what happened next. For the creation was subjected to frustration, not by its own choice, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be liberated from its bondage to decay. Paul is saying that creation itself, nature, the physical world, was affected by the fall. The world we live in is a broken version of what God intended. Disease, natural disaster, decay, these are not God's original design. They are the consequence of a world fractured by sin. This does not mean every person who suffers is being punished for their sin. Jesus addressed this directly in John 9, when his disciples asked whose sin caused a man's blindness. Jesus said, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned." Sometimes suffering exists simply because we live in a broken world. Romans 8:28 is one of the most quoted and most misunderstood verses in the Bible. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. This verse is not saying that everything that happens is good. It is saying that God is able to work through everything, including evil and suffering, to produce something good. Joseph in Genesis is one of the clearest examples. Sold into slavery by his own brothers, falsely accused, imprisoned for years. And yet, Genesis 50:20 records him saying to those very brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." God did not cause Joseph's suffering, but he worked through it. James 1:2-4 also tells us that trials produce perseverance, and perseverance produces maturity. Suffering, in the hands of God, can become the very tool that shapes us into who we were meant to be. So what is the answer nobody likes? It is this: we will not always get an explanation. Job demanded one. God responded, not with an explanation but with a question. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? It is not a dismissal. It is a reminder that God's perspective operates on a scale we cannot fully comprehend from where we stand. Isaiah 55:8-9 says it plainly. "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." This is the answer that nobody likes, because we want resolution. We want it to make sense. We want the math to add up. And sometimes, in this life, it does not. What we are offered instead is trust. Not blind trust. Trust built on the character of a God who entered his own creation, suffered alongside us, and defeated death itself. A God who did not watch suffering from a distance, but stepped into it. That is the Christian answer to evil. Not a formula, not a five-step explanation. A person, Jesus Christ, who suffered, who died, and who rose, and who promised that the suffering of this present time is not worth comparing to the glory that is coming. So where does that leave us? If you came to this video looking for a neat, tidy answer, I understand the frustration. This topic does not offer one. But if you came here hurting, questioning, feeling like God has been silent, know this. You are in the company of some of the greatest figures in Scripture. Job, David, Jeremiah, even Jesus, they all cried out to God in their pain, and not one of them was turned away. The existence of evil does not disprove God. For many, it is the very thing that drives them deeper into Him. If you walked away from this knowing something you didn't know before, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if this is the kind of content you want more of, subscribe to Two Sides Scripture. Every week, we go deeper into the questions most people are afraid to ask. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm your host, and remember, both perspectives, you decide.